Nobody in that village could have imagined how quickly joy could turn into despair. On the evening of March 7, 2025, music filled the narrow lanes of Ayodhya as the sound of drums and trumpets echoed across the town. A young groom, Pradeep, just 24 years old, danced wildly in the center of the crowd. Friends and cousins lifted him on their shoulders as relatives clapped, laughed, and joined the rhythm of the wedding band. It was the happiest day of his life, the kind of day every son dreams of and every mother prays to see. But destiny, hidden in the shadows, was already preparing its cruel twist. The wedding procession reached the bride's house, where Shivani, a 22-year-old woman from a nearby village, waited with her family. Their hearts raced with excitement as the moment they had long awaited finally arrived. The rituals began, the couple exchanged garlands, and the photographers captured their shy smiles, hesitant glances, and secret bursts of laughter. To the world, it was a perfect union, a love story that had finally turned into reality. But hidden beneath the glitter of jewelry, the fragrance of flowers, and the noise of celebration was a fate so dark that no one could have predicted it. For Pradeep's family, this marriage was more than just another ceremony. He was the youngest son, the last to be married, and the event carried the weight of both tradition and emotion. Their small house in Shahdatgarh Morawan Tola had been freshly painted, tiled, and decorated by Pradeep himself. He wanted everything perfect for the arrival of his bride. He had dreamed of this day for years, and now it had finally come true. But what the family thought was the beginning of lifelong happiness would soon become a nightmare they would never wake up from. The next morning, March 8th, Shivani bid farewell to her childhood home and stepped into her new life. Her tearful mother hugged her tightly, while her father blessed her with trembling hands. The groom's family welcomed her with open arms. The rituals of Griha Pravesh, the traditional entry of a new bride, were completed. Laughter filled the house again as neighbors and relatives visited to congratulate the family. Everyone praised the couple, remarking on how beautiful Shivani looked and how cheerful Pradeep seemed. Yet beneath these smiles, the clock was ticking toward a tragedy that no one could imagine. By late afternoon, the celebrations continued with prayers and rituals. The atmosphere was still full of laughter and joy. Women sang traditional wedding songs while children ran around in excitement. The family was already preparing for the grand reception the following day. They knew that hundreds of guests would gather to bless the couple, and there was still so much work to be done. But for now, it was time to let the bride and groom rest. After all, it was their first night together, the night everyone teased them about. Around midnight, the guests began to settle down. The sounds of laughter faded as people drifted to sleep. Pradeep and Shivani retreated into their decorated bedroom. The door was shut from the inside around 12:30 a.m. Outside, no one suspected that the closed door would soon hide a scene of horror, a scene that would scar the family forever. For the relatives, it was just another night. For Pradeep and Shivani, it was the beginning of something no one could explain. Morning came, March 9th. The first light of dawn touched the walls of the small house. Family members woke early, as they always did, because there was work to be done. Pradeep's elder brother Deepak expected him to be awake. Every morning, Pradeep was responsible for feeding the cows and milking them, but this time, he was nowhere to be seen. At first, Deepak thought his younger brother must be tired from the wedding. Smiling to himself, he knocked on the door, reminding Pradeep of their plan to visit the vegetable market. But silence answered him. Deepak frowned. He knocked again, harder this time, but still there was no response. Inside, the phone rang endlessly, unanswered. It was strange. Pradeep had never been the kind of man to sleep through responsibilities. The cows grew restless, waiting for him, and Shivani too did not appear. A new bride might sleep late, people thought, but not with her husband missing his daily duties. Slowly, unease began to creep through the house. By 6:30 a.m., the knocking grew louder. Sisters, mother, and relatives all tried calling out, but nothing came from the other side. A tense silence filled the air, broken only by the whispers of suspicion. Could something have gone wrong? Fear gripped the mother's heart as her hands trembled against the wooden door. 1,000 thoughts flashed in her mind, but none prepared her for the reality waiting inside. One of the sisters finally dared to peek through the window covered by an iron mesh. Her eyes froze, her breath caught, and in an instant her scream tore through the air. The family rushed to the window, and what they saw turned their world upside down. Shivani lay motionless on the bed, her body unnaturally still, and above her, hanging from the ceiling fan with a piece of cloth tied around his neck, was Pradeep. The joyous house that had echoed with music just hours ago was now a graveyard of silence and horror. Women collapsed to the ground crying, men shouted in disbelief, and children stood frozen in terror. Neighbors rushed in, their faces pale with shock. Nobody could understand. How could this happen? Why would Pradeep, the happy groom, do this? Why was Shivani lying lifeless, her body bearing strange marks of struggle? The door was broken open around 7:30 a.m. and chaos erupted inside. Some ran to untie Pradeep, others tried to wake Shivani, but it was too late. Both were gone. Within minutes, the police were informed, and by 8:30 a.m., officers arrived with forensic teams. What had begun as the happiest moment for two families had turned into one of the darkest mysteries the town had ever seen. The question now wasn't about the marriage, the rituals, or the celebrations. The question was chilling and simple. What really happened in that locked room? The scene inside that small room left everyone shaken. Pradeep's body dangled from the ceiling fan, while Shivani's lifeless form lay on the bed below. What disturbed investigators most were the marks around Shivani's neck, deep impressions of fingers and nails, the unmistakable signs of strangulation. Pradeep's face, too, bore scratches, as if someone had fought desperately to escape his grip. The forensic team studied the room carefully. The bed was disheveled, pillows tossed aside, and clothes scattered across the floor, clear evidence of a struggle. A kitchen knife rested nearby, but strangely, it had nothing to do with the incident. The only undeniable truth was that the joyous wedding had ended in a violent tragedy. By noon, both bodies were transported for post-mortem examination. The waiting was agonizing for the family. Mothers wailed, sisters fainted, and neighbors whispered endless questions. Why would Pradeep, known for his calm and gentle nature, strangle his wife on their very first night? Why would he then end his own life? Nobody wanted to believe it, but the evidence inside the room painted a different picture. 3 hours later, the autopsy report arrived and it confirmed the unthinkable. Shivani had died between 3 o'clock and 3:30 a.m. from strangulation. Pradeep's death followed about an hour later, between 4 o'clock and 4:30 a.m., caused by hanging. The findings suggested a chilling sequence. In the darkness of the night, Pradeep had pressed the life out of his bride, and then, overwhelmed by regret or fear, had taken his own. The family's hearts shattered hearing this conclusion. The wedding, meant to bring new life to their home, had instead buried two young souls forever. Yet, the mystery was far from solved. Forensic experts pointed out something else. Shivani's nails had deep skin fragments from Pradeep, proving she had fought for her life. The picture that emerged was one of struggle, rage, and then silence. But why had it come to this? To understand, investigators dug into their past. Pradeep, the youngest of 4 siblings, had lived a life of hardship. His father had died in a road accident 20 years earlier, leaving the family in poverty. His mother's health was frail, forcing the brothers to grow up quickly. Deepak, the elder brother, became a truck mechanic while Pradeep turned to tiling work after dropping out of school. Despite endless struggles, he was known as a hard-working, kind-hearted man. Neighbors described him as cheerful, someone who rarely raised his voice. The family had always dreamt of his wedding as a moment of healing after years of loss. Shiv, Ani's story was no less painful. Born in Ayodhya but raised in Delhi, she was the eldest of 4 children. Her father worked in a small metal factory, her mother in a local workshop. Life was harsh, money scarce. Shivani left school after 8th grade to learn sewing, balancing housework with caring for her younger siblings. Relatives remembered her as gentle, dutiful, and responsible. When she met Pradeep at a wedding in April 2024, sparks flew instantly. Both families saw their union as fate itself. After months of waiting, postponements, and preparations, their marriage was sealed on March 7, 2025. But within 24 hours, that promise of happiness had turned into a nightmare. The investigation pressed further. Police examined the locked room. There was no sign of forced entry. The windows were sealed with iron mesh, the only door bolted from the inside. None of the 20 relatives sleeping in the house had heard screams, not even Pradeep's mother, who lay just 5 feet away. How could a violent struggle occur in such silence? The answer seemed clear. No outsider had been involved. This was a crime and a suicide committed between husband and wife alone, yet something still didn't add up. A missing piece puzzled investigators, Shivani's phone. It was nowhere to be found. When questioned, her parents revealed that her own phone had been damaged months earlier, so she had been using her mother's device to talk with Pradeep. Before the wedding, she had returned it to her mother, leaving her broken phone behind at home. This explained why no device was recovered from her belongings. But this raised another chilling detail. Pradeep had already bought her a new phone, intending to gift it at their wedding reception the next day. Police retrieved Pradeep's phone and scanned his call records. Most seemed normal, filled with family and work contacts, but one detail stood out. On March 9th, just hours before the tragedy, he had dialed his nephew Anuj, telling him he planned to surprise Shivani with the new phone. It was meant to be a gift of love, a symbol of their new beginning. Instead, it became a haunting clue in their tragic end. Then investigators stumbled upon something even stranger. Messages on Pradeep's WhatsApp that made their blood run cold. At 8:45 p.m., hours before the deaths, a message appeared on Pradeep's own phone. It read, "Shivani, how are you? You shouldn't have left me like this." 2 more lines followed, but police withheld them from the public. The wording suggested that someone from Shivani's past was accusing her of betrayal. But how could such a message land on Pradeep's device? Was it meant for Shivani's missing phone, or had someone else intervened? Investigators quickly traced the sender, and what they uncovered twisted the story in ways nobody expected. The truth was shocking. Pradeep himself had written the message. Using the new phone he secretly purchased, he had sent a message to his old number, pretending to be someone else. But why? Was it a test of loyalty, a cruel prank, or a jealous man's way of probing his new wife's past? Nobody could say for sure. The discovery split opinions. Some believed it was nothing more than a joke gone wrong, an insecure husband trying to tease his wife. Others believed it was a sign of deep mistrust, an act that ignited a fire on their very first night together. For investigators, this revelation became the key to everything. If the message was a joke, perhaps Shivani reacted angrily. Maybe she accused him of not trusting her. Maybe she reminded him of things he didn't want to hear. The post-mortem showed they had shared intimacy later that night, suggesting they reconciled for a time. But something must have snapped afterward. In the quiet hours of dawn, while Shivani slept, Pradeep may have lain awake, haunted by suspicion. By 3 a.m., consumed by jealousy or doubt, he pressed his hands around her neck. The tragedy left no clear answers. Police concluded that there had been no third person, no outside attack. Whatever happened in that room began and ended with Pradeep and Shivani. Still, the message, the single cryptic text, cast a long shadow over the truth. Was it just a playful trick, or was there a deeper wound in their relationship, a hidden secret that Shivani carried with her to her grave? Nobody could be certain. The families, broken by grief, were left pointing fingers. Pradeep's relatives accused Shivani's side of indifference, saying they did not mourn her deeply. Shivani's parents, in turn, complained that they had not even been told directly of her death, but had learned through someone else. Tensions flared, but nothing could change what had already happened. By evening, the cremation took place. Both bodies were placed on the same pyre, and Pradeep's brother lit the flame. In that moment, 2 lives, 2 dreams, and 2 families' hopes burned away together. Yet even as the fire rose, the unanswered question lingered in everyone's mind. Was this tragedy truly just a matter of jealousy, or was there more hidden behind the silence of that room? The police investigation reached its final stages, but clarity remained as distant as ever. On paper, the story seemed simple. Pradeep strangled Shivani in the early hours of March 9th and then, drowning in regret, ended his own life. Yet when officers pieced the puzzle together, the details refused to align neatly. How could a man known for his gentle nature suddenly turn into a killer? How could love that had carried them to the wedding fire burn out in less than 24 hours? The contradictions gnawed at everyone, leaving behind not just grief but endless suspicion. Forensic experts pointed to the sequence of events as undeniable. The marks on Shivani's neck showed she had struggled for her life. The scratches on Pradeep's face told the same story. She had tried to fight him off. Yet, even after this violent outburst, signs showed the couple had shared intimacy that night. Did they reconcile after a heated argument? Or was their closeness only a fragile attempt to patch over cracks already forming? Nobody knew. What remained certain was that when Shivani fell asleep, her husband's mind did not. It kept replaying that strange message, the message Pradeep had written to himself. That message became the single most haunting detail of the entire case. Why would Pradeep send a text to his own phone pretending to be someone else? Some argued it was jealousy. He feared Shivani had loved someone before him and wanted to test her reaction. Others said it was a cruel prank, a way to unsettle his bride and watch her squirm. But perhaps the most chilling theory was that Pradeep wasn't joking at all. He had doubts so deep that he created proof to feed his own insecurity. If Shivani's reaction had been strong, defensive, or hurtful, maybe it convinced him of something that may not have even existed. Relatives whispered their own theories. Some believed Pradeep suspected Shivani of hiding a past relationship. Others thought Shivani's anger at being tested was so sharp that it triggered a fight neither could calm down from. A few even speculated about dark family politics, but the locked door and absence of outsiders crushed that idea quickly. In the end, it boiled down to the most dangerous of all human emotions, mistrust. And in the silence of that night, mistrust turned into madness. When police tried to press deeper, they found little cooperation from either side of the family. Pradeep's relatives insisted their son could never do such a thing, claiming he must have been pushed by circumstances no one understood. Shivani's parents, heartbroken but resigned, said only that what happened was God's will. Neither family demanded further investigation. Neither side wanted the truth if it meant more shame. And so, slowly, the case began to fade from official records, stamped as a murder-suicide with no outside involvement. But for those who lived in that village, the silence was deafening. They replayed every detail, The music of the wedding band, the shy smiles during the rituals, the laughter at dinner, the teasing about the first night, and none of it made sense. How could joy turn to death so quickly? Mothers held their daughters closer. Fathers grew suspicious of the men who came to ask for their children's hands. Young couples whispered to each other about trust, about the dangers of jealousy, about how fragile love could be when poisoned by doubt. Pradeep's elder brother Deepak was left the most broken. He had raised his younger sibling almost like a son after their father's death. He had worked day and night to keep the family alive, and he had dreamed of this wedding as a moment of peace after years of struggle. Instead, he found himself lighting his brother's funeral pyre, standing beside the body of his sister-in-law who had barely entered their home. The grief was unbearable, but the unanswered questions were worse. What had they argued about? What words were exchanged in those final moments? Why hadn't anyone heard them just a few feet away? The truth, as investigators admitted, may never be known. With both of them gone, there was no voice left to explain. The message, the fight, the intimacy, the silence, the deaths, all remained fragments of a story that ended too soon. Perhaps it was just one reckless moment, a man blinded by jealousy who later regretted it. Perhaps Shivani had said something in anger that pushed him over the edge. Or perhaps there truly was more to the story, something hidden that both families chose not to reveal. In the end, the pyre burned both bodies together, husband and wife, united in death as they had been in vows just 2 nights earlier. Smoke rose into the sky, carrying with it the dreams of 2 young souls and leaving behind ashes of confusion, sorrow, and suspicion. The case was closed, but the wound it left remained open. Every time someone passed that small house, they looked at the door of the room that was once locked from inside and shivered at the thought of what had truly happened behind it. And so the story ends not with answers, but with questions. Was it really just a joke gone wrong? Or was there a deeper secret, buried forever with Pradeep and Shivani? Did mistrust alone destroy their lives, or was fate playing a role too cruel for anyone to understand? Maybe the truth died with them, or maybe, hidden somewhere in whispers and silence, the truth is still waiting to be uncovered. What do you think? Was this tragedy simply a tale of jealousy and doubt, or is there still another secret locked away, one that no one has dared to reveal?